Hey everyone, my grinder just died, and to fix it I need to replace the brushes in the motor, so I thought I'd make a quick video to explain how these motors work, give a little bit of background info on them, and then show you how easy it can be to fix a motor like this. And if you want to see a quick garden update, stick around at the end of the video. These grinders and many other power tools and home appliances like vacuums and blenders use universal motors, which can technically run off AC and DC electricity. Today these tools and their motors run off of AC because that's what most people have, and running off of DC does have some drawbacks. But these motors go back to the late 1800s and the AC versus DC wars. Back then, different cities and districts ran on different power systems. Some of them were on AC, some of them were on DC, and they also had different voltages. And universal motors were popularized because they can run on both systems, so manufacturers wouldn't have to put out multiple versions of the same tool, but they will always run a bit better on the system they're designed for. As the world settled on AC, universal motors stuck around because they run really well on AC, and they're high speed, high torque, high power density motors that are really cheap to manufacture. So how do they work? The motor armature has multiple windings, and each time one is energized, it reacts magnetically to the field windings that give it a push in the right direction. That probably doesn't make much sense yet, but in a couple minutes it will. You can think of the motor like it's a playground merry-go-round, and each time you give it a push, it's like energizing one of the windings. You need to get the timing right, so when you go to push a merry-go-round, your hand lines up with one of the poles, and you push it at the right speed and in the right direction. This is what a commutator does on the motor. So now let's have a look at all the different parts of a universal motor, and this will all start to make sense. Here's a diagram of the motor head-on, and here's what the actual parts look like. We have a power source coming in, and first it goes through the field windings. These are coils of copper wire, and when electricity passes through them, they develop a magnetic field, and they'll be opposite polarities. Next, the electricity continues through the brushes to the commutator. The commutator has multiple segments, and each segment is connected to a winding on the armature. Electricity goes from the commutator segment to its connected winding. And as the winding is electrified, it creates a magnetic field that pushes and pulls against the field windings, and this turns the armature. As it turns, the next commutator segment lines up with the brushes and electrifies its windings, energizing them at the exact right moment to keep the motor spinning again and again and again until you remove the power source. So the commutator acts like a timing device. It makes sure each winding gets energized at the exact right moment to keep the armature spinning. And here's one of the really cool things about universal motors. Because all the windings are wired in series, the current flows in the same direction through all of them. And if you switch the direction of the current, the polarity of all the magnetic fields also switches. So no matter which direction the current is flowing, the motor turns in the same direction. This is why they can run off both AC and DC. As the current reverses back and forth when using AC, it does so in all the windings, so the motor continues to spin in the same direction. And then with something you want to be able to run in reverse also, like a drill, you can just switch the direction of the current on the field windings and the motor will turn in the opposite direction. Okay, that's how the motor is made to spin. Now let's look at the role the brushes play. We need to connect the commutator to the power source to energize the windings, but we can't permanently wire it up because as it's spinning, the wires would get all twisted up. This is where the carbon brushes come in. They're the parts that actually make the intermittent electrical contact between the power source and the commutator. So the electricity comes in the back side of the brushes, and the front side is pushed up against the commutator. There's also a spring on the back side of the brushes that pushes it against the commutator to maintain contact. As the commutator spins, the brush slides along its surface and electrical contact is made and broken with each of the commutator segments. This energizes the windings in the correct timing so that the motor spins. But this is pretty rough on the brushes. There's friction from the spinning and little electrical arcs each time it makes and breaks contact with the commutator. So after many hundreds of thousands of revolutions, the brushes wear down and need to be replaced. This is also a reason that universal motors aren't used for things that run constantly or would be a problem if they stopped running, like a fridge. The brushes would wear out fairly quickly and the fridge would just randomly stop working. So that's the basics of how universal motors work and why the brushes eventually wear out. Now let's get into this grinder and swap them out. It's actually surprisingly easy. So the main symptom is that the motor will just randomly stop working. And often right as the brushes are about to go, it'll start up but then cut off after a few seconds. And you'll get a few startups like that, and then it'll just refuse to start completely. So that's a perfect example. It's still turned on, it started up, and then just shut down. And here I'm just flipping it on and off. So it's sort of starting maybe every other time I turn the power switch on, but it only runs a few seconds. So this is a classic sign of brushes being worn out. So the first thing I'm going to do is unplug it. Then I'm just going to pull out the screws and remove the housing here at the bottom. Then I'll just use a flathead and pop the case open. So here's the brush right here. First thing I'll do is just pop off the electrical connection right there. So that is now free. And then this is the spring on this. So that is just pushing against the back of the brush right there. So what I'll actually do is just stick the flathead through here. And then I can just pop out the brush. And I'll just leave the flathead in there. And here's the new brush. And you can see they're basically identical, except the new one is longer than the old one. So this would have been the same length originally, and it's just made out of carbon or graphite and is just worn down over time. So I'll just drop the new one in, let the spring fall down, and then reconnect it. So that's done. Super easy. So again, disconnect the cable, lift the spring out of the way, and pull out the old one. And then here's another new one. These are like $1 or $2 each. They're really cheap and really easy to replace. The other thing I'll point out is that it's not always the brush. It could be the spring. If the spring's not pushing the brush down against the commutator to get good contact, then it won't work either. So your brushes might be fine and you just need more tension from the spring. I also used a paper towel just to wipe down the commutator through the hole that the brush left when I removed it. It's a good idea to do this, and sometimes the commutator will be so dirty that you really do need to do it. You might even need to use some steel wool or something like that. But even if it's not too dirty, it's a good idea just to wipe it down while you're in there. All right, that's it. Now I'll just throw the housing back on. Now, sometimes they won't have great contact initially, so if you turn the motor a couple times, it lets the brushes settle down next to the commutator. Plug it in, and here we go. All right, so now it's running great. It can be a good idea to run it for a little while with no load on it, just to let the brushes settle in and develop the right curve to fit the commutator. But other than that, it's ready to go. Sometimes the brushes aren't as easy to get to as this, but it's usually not too bad. It's a couple bucks and a pretty quick job, and you get a whole new lifespan out of your tool. So I definitely think it's worth trying. Even if it ends up being a more complex issue, it's still pretty cheap, and to me it's even fun to try to fix it myself. And I just want to mention again, if you ever work on your own tools, make sure you unplug them while you're working on it. You don't want to get a surprise shock from these. All right, that's it for the grinder, and here's a quick garden update if you want to stick around for that. My main focus with this garden is to try to extend the growing season 4 to 6 weeks in the spring and 4 to 6 weeks in the autumn. And I'm largely doing this by trying to heat both the soil and the air in the colder months. And with all the hacks to increase temperatures, like the heat retaining wall, mini polytunnels for the raised beds, and flat plastic on the big beds, I've been able to increase temperatures enough so that now I'm harvesting veg by about the beginning of May. So here I've got onions and some root veg like carrots and beets, and this bed is lettuces, and they're really starting to take off. But up in here, I've got my potatoes, and my earlies are just starting to flower, so it won't be long until I've got some potatoes to eat, and these are all doing really well. And then in the back of the big bed here, I've got the three sisters. So I've got a bunch of different kinds of squash: zucchini, yellow squash, pumpkins, some winter squash, butternut, and acorn. I've got sweet corn here and green beans in the back. And then I also plant in a bunch of sunflowers and marigolds throughout all of my garden beds. And then I've got all my brassicas down in these beds here. I've got purple and green broccoli, sprouts, kale, cabbage, just a whole variety of stuff. And I keep all the brassicas under the butterfly netting. I'll be able to take that off later in the summer after the butterflies have passed, but the brassicas really get hammered by caterpillars here, so I've got this netting on to protect them. And this is just a really cheap, simple PVC frame. It's 10-foot pieces of PVC just bent and stuck into the ground, and then another piece of PVC along the top, and then I just drape the netting down, and then I can just drop the netting down like that. It's easy to get into and easy to remove when I don't need it anymore. And then back here, this whole bed is just loaded with asparagus. But it's only May 28th, so most of the growing is still happening here in the polytunnel. But with the heat retaining wall back here, it's been warm enough for a while, so everything's really starting to produce really well in here. My zucchini and yellow squash are just pumping out right now. I've got my first ripening tomato, and I've got a ton of tomatoes on all the plants. And the chard is just exploding back here, and I've got cucumbers and green beans and arugula and coriander, and everything's just going really crazy in here. And then I've got more starts coming in here, and this is today's harvest. And the asparagus have been doing so well this year, I've been getting a harvest basically every day about this big. And last but not least, back here, I've got my wheat and barley. And this will be mostly used for bread making, and the barley will be mostly for beer making. And now that the summer's just about here, I'll have some more garden content coming, and I'll be able to get to some solar videos that I've really been wanting to make. So I've got a ton of stuff lined up, but that's it for this one. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again soon. Please remember, likes and subscribes really help the channel grow. I love to see your comments and suggestions down below. Some of them are really helpful. And if you want to help us directly to keep the content coming, the best way to do that is to become a sponsor over on Patreon.